In a recent development, FIA has taken action against Austrian former professional racing driver Helmut Marko after he made offensive comments about Sergio Perez. Stay tuned as we unveil the drama. The head of Red Bull's driver development program, Helmut Marko, has received a written warning from the FIA. This comes after his offensive remark about Mexican motorsports racing driver Sergio Perez. Marko has been reminded by the FIA of his responsibilities as a public authority in motorsport. The 80-year-old unfortunately made comments at the Italian Grand Prix 2 weeks ago. Marko referred to Perez's background and ethnicity while he was discussing his poor performance. His comments said Perez is a South American and that's why he has less focus compared to Max Verstappen or Sebastian Vettel, didn't set well with anyone, including the higher officials. Marko instantly realised his mistake and went on to apologise to Perez, who has also accepted the apology. However, Lewis Hamilton and TOTO WOLFF weren't able to take things lightly and condemn Marko's actions while speaking at the Singapore Grand Prix. Now it is the turn of the FIA, who has confirmed that Marko has been given a written warning and been reminded of his duties as a public figure in motorsport. This is in line with the FIA Code of Ethics. Article 1.2 of the FIA's Code of Ethics says there shall be no discrimination between participants to the FIA activities on the basis of race, skin colour, gender, sexual orientation, ethnic or social origin, language, religion, philosophical or political opinion, family situation, or disability. After the warning against Marko, the FIA has an ethics committee that can examine reported breaches of its ethics code, upon complaints from one of the FIA parties or third parties. For the unversed, Helmut Marko, while commenting on the Mexican's poor form from his season on Perez's ethnicity, faced severe backlash. After the Italian Grand Prix, Marko told Red Bull-owned Service TV that everyone knows that Perez has problems in qualifying, as he has fluctuations in his form. He added that probably him being South American and just not as totally focused in his head as Max Verstappen is or Sebastian Vettel. This was not the first time that Marko referred to Perez as a South American, despite him coming from Guadalajara, which is geographically in North America. Marko's comments really haunted him to the core as he received severe backlash on social media. 6 days after the incident, Marko decided to issue a public apology to Perez. He said in a statement, "I was trying to make a point that Checo Perez has fluctuated in his performance this year, but it was wrong to attribute this to his cultural heritage." On the other hand, Perez said he has accepted Marko's apology and didn't find the comments offensive. Perez also explained how he had private conversations with Marko and an apology coming from him was the main thing for Perez. He has moved on from the incident and said that he knows Marko well, who according to him wasn't intended to offend him. He also added that he has accepted Marko's apology because he knows Helmut from the personal relationship that they both have and that he didn't get offended at all, even at a personal level. He also noted how those comments weren't from a different perspective and that's why he has taken them seriously. He just took things as they are and didn't involve any personal or negative meaning to the same. But obviously, Perez didn't mention that if those comments were read in isolation or without knowing Marko for the kind of person he is, it could have been perceived as offensive and very disrespectful. But as he mentioned, knowing Helmut and the kind of personal relationship that they shared with each other helped Perez in a lot of ways to understand his comment and him as well as getting a personal apology. In simple terms, Perez meant to say that the public may not have perceived the comments on a lighter note as they didn't know Marko well, but as Perez knows him and they share a rapport too, the offensive remarks have become a thing of the past. Despite Helmut and Perez trying to move on from the bad day in their lives, several noted players are not letting bygones be bygones. Moreover, no action from Red Bull over Marko's comments got him criticised by Mercedes F1 driver Lewis Hamilton, F1's only black driver. You might be aware of how Hamilton has been the sport's leading voice on inclusion and battling racism in recent years. 38 years old, Lewis Hamilton criticised Marko's comments as totally unacceptable. The 7-time world champion went on to claim that this is not something that one just apologised for and it seems to be all okay. He also added that when it is perceived that there is no room for any type of discrimination in motorsport, then no leaders and people in higher positions should come up with such discriminatory comments in the long run. He also commented on how there are several people in the background who are really combating such offensive remarks, and they find it challenging to deal with people at the top having such narrow mindsets that don't allow them to progress in their careers. Mercedes racer and Verstappen's former title rival Hamilton shared that there is a lot of scope for improvement to set inclusive environments for teams to function productively. The Britain's remarks are impressive as they come at a time when Mercedes for long has been in an extreme on-track fight with Red Bull. With Hamilton having called Marko out, the Austrian now has taken a dig at the 7-time world champion. Helmut Marko claims he feels terrible for Felipe Massa, who is currently in a legal challenge against the 2009 F1 result. While speaking to Kronenzeitung in a recent interview, Helmut Marko said if there are new facts, the matter can be reopened, and then the chances for Massa are not so bad. It was terrible to see him celebrate the title for 20 seconds, and suddenly everything disappeared. I wish he would be given the title, and Mr. Hamilton, who doesn't think about records, wouldn't mind having one less. Marko also hinted at a possible impact on other past races if Massa's legal case is successful. Mercedes' TOTO WOLFF suggests that the outcome of Massa's case could affect decisions covering the controversial 2021 title defeat of Hamilton. Coming back to Helmut Marko's comment, Mercedes boss TOTO WOLFF also added that it was the most embarrassing thing for Formula One overall. He mentioned how it was an offensive remark, but even to have such a regressive mindset. He further added how a lot of work is happening to ensure there is equality and diversity in teams. The work is not just because the teams need it, but it is in fact the requirement of the day. As motorsport is a global sport, it is a role model environment, and officials go to every country to embrace the cultural differences. Thus, such discrimination has no place in Formula One, not now, and not even in the long run, said WOLFF. McLaren CEO Zak Brown also shared his thoughts on the incident and said how he thought one has to be extremely careful while saying anything to anybody, especially in the public domain. He also empathised with people who were offended by the incident. He further added that Marko should have been extra careful, as these days one has to be very respectful of everyone and not make comments that can be perceived as inappropriate. Haas team principal GUENTHER STEINER also repeated the same views as that of Brown. He agreed with Zak, as he felt that stereotyping doesn't work these days. He also shared that one has to be very careful with what they speak. It seems that making public comments that are controversial in nature should be dealt with carefully by the top officials in the sports industry. It is easier to take a jibe or criticize someone in the public domain, but when it creates a loud noise or hurts different communities involved, it doesn't set a good example. Although Marko didn't demean Perez so abruptly, it was not even thought by him from that perspective. But what is assumed to be a xenophobic slur towards Sergio Perez is something that will take time for people to forgive and forget. Especially after the 80-year-old, who has a senior role to play in the Red Bull Group as its motorsport advisor, it becomes challenging for him to perform an important role in the growth of young drivers, as he is the one who decides who races for its two F1 teams, Red Bull Racing and AlphaTauri. It is not just in sports, but be it in any industry or profession, if any higher official or an experienced person comes with regressive opinions, it can really break the progress of the people down him. It will also create chaos and imbalance in the existing systems. Do you also think that Marko's comments were blown out of proportion? Or do you feel that discrimination of any sort can actually hamper the progress of young performers in the sports industry? What do you think the media should do in such situations? Do share your honest views in the comments below. If you enjoyed watching this video, simply click on like and subscribe to our channel. Stay tuned for more sensational updates.